I'm a YFU volunteer because I really believe in the mission. And I'll give you a story that explains why. Several years ago, I was working with several students, and I took them to the John F. Kennedy Museum in Boston as a field trip. There were 2 Japanese young men and a Korean girl. And we went into the Kennedy Museum, and I was thinking this was a wonderful field trip. After all, there's a lot of historic colonial history in Boston, but this was a modern day history, and everybody can admire John F. Kennedy. I was thinking that that's not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country, and I thought it would be inspiring. So we went in. It begins with a movie about his life. So we went into the theater and we sat down. And then I began to realize that I hadn't thought about Kennedy's life. His career began fighting in World War II in the South Pacific. And it was talking about fighting Japan, of course. And there was footage of Roosevelt talking about the evil Japanese empire. And I began to slink down in my seat. And it went on and on. There was even a discussion about dropping the atomic bomb and justifying it. And I was really embarrassed, and I was slinking lower in my seat. After we got out of the theater, I talked to the students and I said, I am so embarrassed. I hadn't thought about what it must feel like to be Japanese and to be at this museum honoring Kennedy, who had fought Japan. That must have been really difficult for you. And then we proceeded to have a discussion. And during the course of the discussion, these young people made points that just blew me away. One of them being, that was then and this is now. Another one being, there's a difference between the government and the people. Another one being, war is wrong, revenge doesn't work. And then finally, one Japanese young man said to me something that just absolutely blew me away. And he said, you know, in our history, Japan was not always honorable in the way it dealt with Korea. I never thought I'd be friends with a Korean girl. And he looked at the Korean girl. And I thought to myself, how beautiful is this? You know, not only are we sending these young men out into the world, young women out into the world, having a good impression about the United States and the interactions they have here, but also having developed compassion for each other. And that's why I love this job and our students. And that's why I think you would too. Thank you.
Can I introduce your name?
I am Lynn Reiss from Cambridge, Massachusetts.